Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Ed O'Keefe. Republican Nevada Senate nominee Adam Laxalt has officially conceded defeat to Democratic Senator Catherine Cortez Masto. Laxalt tweeted earlier today that he called the senator this morning to congratulate her. CBS News called the election in the senator's favor over the weekend. Her victory has secured Democrats' continued control of the Senate. I spoke with the senator earlier, and she told us that despite top voter concerns about inflation, the economy, and abortion rights in the closing weeks of the campaign, she found that fallout from the January 6, 2021 insurrection at the U.S. Capitol also resonated widely with her constituents. Take a look.
This is, again, what I was hearing from Nevadans, not just the kitchen table issues they were concerned about, not just the repeal of Roe versus Wade in a state that's proud pro-choice, but also January 6th, what happened. And this is what I learned. You know, I was in the Capitol on January 6th. I experienced it firsthand. But we can't forget the many people that were in their homes watching it also happen in front of their very eyes, and the emotional impact it had for so many people across this country, including Nevadans that I'd heard from, about the concerns of what they were seeing happening at the Capitol, the attack on January 6th, what the intent was by those, that violent mob to undermine our democracy. And people were seeing that real time in my state and felt just as emotional about what was happening as I did, and I was experiencing it real time, absolutely at the time. But it was also about what they wanted to protect. And they knew that my opponent had gone around the state peddling the big lie, that after the election, he was a co-chair of Donald Trump's re-election campaign. And after Donald Trump lost, he was going around the state claiming that the election had been stolen in Nevada. Now, our courts in Nevada said, no, that's not true. Our Republican Secretary of State in Nevada said, no, that is not true. But my opponent kept peddling that big lie. And not just my opponent, there were a number of far-right extreme candidates that were on the ballot in Nevada that were doing the same thing. And why was that dangerous? Nevadans connected the dots between not only that peddling that big lie, but that fueled the mob on January 6th in the Capitol. By continuing that conspiracies and those lies, fueled what we saw on January 6th that harmed law enforcement, that law enforcement lost their lives on, and that was trying to undermine our democracy. So they were talking to me about this and how important it was also to guard our democracy and our democratic institutions, and why they were coming out to support me. And I will tell you, again, this crossed party lines. I was hearing from so many Nevadans about this issue as well. And so you couldn't discount it, because this was really, for me, something that for Nevadans was just as important as all those other issues that you and I and others have been talking about, that we're hearing across the country.
Let's look ahead a little bit to the lame duck and next year. You said in your victory speech you'd never stop fighting for working people in Nevada. The GOP appears to have their sights set on using the debt ceiling debate to go after Social Security and Medicare. Is that a debate you're willing to have in order to raise the debt limit, or does that fall under the auspices of things that could affect working people?
Well, let me just tell you what I know from working families in my state. They want us to work together. They want us to work in a bipartisan way to solve the problems, not create them. And so I am hopeful that my colleagues, my Republican colleagues, are willing to work to really move forward and address the issues and make sure that we are focusing on those families and lowering costs for them, helping them really with their future, making sure they have good jobs. You know, in my state, we still have housing costs that are too high. We still have gas prices that are too high. That requires big oil to come to the table to work with us, but that requires my colleagues. All of us should be working on behalf of our families, because I know in Nevada, if my families are still feeling the cost of inflation, so are so many others across the states, including in those Republican, in my Republican colleagues' states. So what I've learned and what I know in Nevada is they just want us to work together in a manner that is really focused on our families and making life a little bit easier for them, and making sure that their children are taken care of, and that they have those good paying jobs and they can afford a roof over their head.
But bottom line, is the debt limit something that should be dealt with in the lame duck, or no?
Well, I think we need to work together. Again, this goes to an issue of, let's put politics aside. It's not about winning or losing these races at the end of the day. It is about working together to the betterment of this country and the people here. To me, listen, I have said this even in my state, in this election and past elections, I will work on with anyone who is willing to work together to solve these problems.
Right.
Whether you voted for me or not, I'm going to work in your best interest, because when we work together in the best interest of everyone, it lifts everybody up. And that's what we should be doing.
A few political things here. Former President Donald Trump is poised to announce he's running again for president. Your thoughts on his decision to do that?
Well, let me just say, I'm not going to support him. I've seen his divisiveness, and what he is out for was just his own political interests and not the country as a whole. So I obviously am somebody who is not going to be supporting him. I am looking for somebody that is going to unite this country, move us forward, and continue to ensure that we're looking out for everybody's interests and leaving nobody behind. That's what this is about.
Is that what is that President Biden then? Should he be running again in 2024?
I can tell you, in the last 2 years working with this president, we've passed more legislation that works on behalf of everybody in this country, not just during the pandemic. Listen, in Nevada, we had 30% unemployment at the height of the pandemic. We had to work to make sure all of our families and our businesses were taken care of. And then we moved forward with a bipartisan infrastructure package that addressed the wildfires and the droughts in my state and brings broadband and connectivity to people in Nevada. We actually focused on getting done the CHIPS and Science Act that's going to bring manufacturing and jobs, American-made products back here to the United States. And then we passed the Inflation Reduction Act to really lower healthcare costs and energy costs for families, along with the PACT Act that took care of our veterans and so many other things that we've done. So yes, what I have seen in President Biden is his willingness to work across the aisle, but also come together and unite everyone and really focus on the things that are impacting our families and making sure their lives are a little bit better.
So you're a yes in the Biden column, should he decide to do that, then, it sounds like. Real quick, before we let you go, you are the first and the only Latina in the U.S. Senate. What, if anything, are you doing to see other Latinas elected to the chamber?
Oh, that's right. I'm making sure I'm not the last. It is important that we absolutely lift up, bring more of that diversity, more individuals into not just houses of Congress, but across the country into our boardrooms. I have always felt that the people that work in government should be just as diverse as the people we represent. Because if we're at the table and we're making policy and it's a diversity around the table, then nobody's going to be left behind. So for me, that is continuing to open those doors for Latinos, to make sure that we get them into opportunities that they can rise and succeed, not just in government, but in business as well. I will never stop fighting for them. This is my family. This is how I grew up. My background is I'm half Mexican and half Italian. I have a grandfather from Chihuahua and a grandmother from Las Cruces, New Mexico, who came to Southern Nevada and worked hard, worked retail their entire lives. And when they retired, it was Social Security and Medicare. But they came because they wanted to make sure that their children had a better life and then their grandchildren had that much more success. That's no different than any family that I know right now in Nevada. And they should have those opportunities.
All right. Well, Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, congratulations. Here's to 6 more years, and please don't be a stranger over the course of them with us.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.